Drinking in the Magic Kingdom? What is this world coming to? So if you haven't heard the news yet, the Walt Disney Company has announced that they will be serving, starting on December 23rd, beer and wine at 4 new locations in the Magic Kingdom. Now I say new places to grab a drink because you've always been able to grab a glass of wine or a beer over at Be Our Guest ever since it opened. But now starting on December 23rd, you'll also be able to have alcoholic drinks at Tony's Town Square, Skipper's Canteen, the Liberty Tree Tavern, and Cinderella's Royal Table. That's it. That's the news. It's actually a pretty small piece of news. I think it's not a big deal. What I find really entertaining is the sort of very split reaction when news like this comes out. You saw it happen back when they announced that Be Our Guest would have alcoholic beverages, and now you're seeing it again with these places. And that is because before Be Our Guest, the Magic Kingdom in Walt Disney World, as well as Disneyland, which is still the case with Disneyland now, were dry parks, which meant you couldn't buy alcohol within the park at all. And the reason for that was because that's what Walt wanted. Now, there's a reason why Walt wanted it that way, and I think there's a really strong argument that his wishes don't matter anymore, which sounds, I know, blasphemous for the Circle of Disney fans, but hear me out for a second. When Disney was building Disneyland in the mid-1950s, he was trying to combat against the carnival. The carnival was what people knew. There were no theme parks back then. And carnivals back then were not the greatest. They did not have good reputations. They weren't necessarily safe. You didn't have the greatest people attending. You didn't have the greatest people working there. And so in all of Disney's planning for Disneyland, he was constantly thinking about ways to break up that concept that Disneyland was just a carnival. That is why you could not buy alcohol there. That is why men who worked for Disneyland couldn't have facial hair, because at that time in the 50s, having beards and mustaches, that was something that carnies had, and you didn't want, to associate Disneyland with carnivals, so everybody was clean shaven and dressed really nicely. And that was great, and it worked. And over the last 60 years, this concept of a theme park has grown into what it is today, that nobody in their right mind compares something like a Universal or a Disney with a carnival that's traveling through, or like a state fair. So Disney had, for all intents and purposes, he completed his mission. He separated the two, and he created a level and a new, bar of standard for what you would expect in a theme park. That said, it's 2016, times are different. We don't necessarily need to have those things in place anymore. You can have a beard or a mustache and not be a dirty carny. You could have a beer or a glass of wine with your dinner and not become like a drunken mess. So that's why you saw with parks like Epcot and with Hollywood Studios and Animal Kingdom, you saw the ability to get drinks because the Disney company realized that, you didn't really need to have this strict code anymore. And while there was no reason to arbitrarily start putting drinks into the Magic Kingdom, when the opportunity presented itself with Be Our Guest, they took it. And a lot of people are upset. And personally, I think that's silly. I think it's silly to be upset about this because at the end of the day, you don't have to get alcoholic beverages if you don't want to. And I think the park guests, as shown by, how it is since Be Our Guest has opened, are not drunken stumbling fools. You do see that problem a bit with Epcot and the whole drinking around the world thing. And I think a large part of it is not that alcohol is served there, but because that concept of drinking around the world has become so popular that people set out to do it. But you don't see that in like Hollywood Studios. You don't see that in the Magic Kingdom. And so adding 4 locations, which by the way are table service locations where you have to sit down to order these drinks, I don't think that's going to change either. I don't think you're going to start to see people vomiting on the sidewalks of Tomorrowland because they had one too many drinks. I think you're just going to get parents and adults who enjoy alcoholic beverages have more opportunity to enjoy them while they're in the parks. And I just found it so silly because, you go to certain websites like the Disboards, and I think you see a lot of indignant people who get so offended at the idea of doing anything differently from what Walt wished, that I really wish people got this message that Walt was from a different time. He passed away a long time ago. You know, it was just recently the anniversary of his passing. He's been gone for decades, and the world has changed around him. And I think we need to keep that in mind when we try and pick what sort of wishes of Walt that we hold on to and which ones we let go of. And I think the idea of no alcohol in the theme parks, just like the idea of no facial hair in the theme parks, are ones we can let go of today. You know, obviously Disney still keeps that stuff in mind. There is a 2-drink limit for people who are drinking in the Magic Kingdom, so it does help prevent it. And you know, they're reactive too. If too many people start getting really super drunk at the parks, they'll probably do something to change it. So, you know, to those who are freaking out about the idea of there being alcohol in Magic Kingdom, relax. And by the way, I wouldn't be surprised if you see it in Disneyland soon too. And the next time, you know, you get upset about a change where your first thought is Walt wouldn't want it that way, I think you need to stop and take a moment and ask if that's really true. Because maybe he wouldn't have wanted it that way in the 1950s or the 1960s, but maybe he would have thought differently if he was still alive today. He also would have been super old if he was still alive today, so who knows? Anyway, that's the news. Let me know what you think. I know I have a lot of younger viewers to whom this news means nothing because you can't have drinks anyway. But to you older viewers, is this good news? Is this bad news? Do you get to enjoy drinks in the park? Maybe you skip out on them. I will admit, unless you're from a major city like LA or New York or San Francisco, the drinks in Disney can be really, really expensive. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people skip out on them regardless. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more Disney news and videos like this, all you have to do is hit that subscribe button. I do 3 a week. Have a great week. Whatever you're doing, make the most of it. And I'll see you all next time. Bye.
Good.